My wife cheated on me with our neighbor, and now she's claiming I stole $250, $0 from our joint account during our divorce, and I just found out she's been secretly selling off our property to cover her shady loans for years. Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons, with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be the guy to catch his wife cheating. Honestly, I always thought Sarah was too smart, too careful. She's the kind of woman who can lie convincingly, who can hide her feelings just enough to keep everyone clueless. But then again, maybe I was just blind. Because the signs were there, I just didn't see them at first. It all started subtly, little things that didn't add up, but I brushed them off because I wanted to believe in us. It was about 3 months ago when I first noticed she was acting weird. Sarah's always been a bit of a drama queen, but suddenly she was more distant, more secretive. She'd leave her phone around the house more often, and if I tried to look at it, she'd get defensive. At first, I thought maybe she was just stressed at work or dealing with some personal stuff. She's a nurse, always busy, always exhausted. But then I caught her texting someone late at night, and I saw the name Jake pop up more than once. That's when I started paying closer attention. One night, I came home early from work because of a bad headache. I saw her car in the driveway but didn't hear any noise inside. I peeked through the window and saw her in the bedroom, giggling and whispering into her phone. My stomach sank. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but the way she was acting, touching up her makeup, trying to hide her phone, something told me I was about to find out something I really didn't want to know. I quietly entered the house, pretending I was just coming in to grab an aspirin, and I caught her in the act, her hand on her phone screen, her face flushed, and that damn smirk she gets when she's hiding something. I confronted her that night. I asked about the texts, about Jake, about what she was doing. She looked me straight in the eye and lied through her teeth, said it was just a fling, that he was just a guy from her work she was venting to, and that I was overreacting. She called me paranoid, insecure, jealous, but I knew better. I could see the guilt in her eyes and I could smell the lies. That was just the beginning. From that moment, everything changed. I started digging into her phone, her bank accounts, everything I could get my hands on. The truth hit me like a freight train when I found out she'd been seeing Jake for almost a year. They'd been sneaking around when I was at work, even during our supposed date nights. She'd be gone for hours, claiming she was with friends or at the hospital, but I'd find receipts from hotels, lingerie she bought for him, and even photos of them together. I felt like I was living in some bad soap opera. How could she do this to me? After 10 years of marriage, after building a life together, she was just throwing it all away for some guy. It was sickening, but the worst part was yet to come. I found out about the money. Turns out, Sarah had been secretly siphoning funds from our joint account, $250, zero gone without a trace. Money she claimed was for emergencies or investments, but I knew better. She'd been selling off parts of our property, taking loans out under fake names, all to keep Jake and her shady lifestyle afloat. I pulled bank statements, legal documents, and saw her signature on contracts I'd never heard of. It was like she'd been living a double life, hiding everything from me. The betrayal cut deep, but what really shook me was realizing I'd been completely blind to it all. I kept asking myself how I missed the signs, how I didn't see what was happening right under my nose. I felt stupid, betrayed, and furious all at once. I didn't know what to do next, but I knew I couldn't stay silent anymore. After I discovered all of this, I honestly felt like I was suffocating. It was a mix of rage, heartbreak, and a deep sense of betrayal that I couldn't shake. I remember sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at the mountain of evidence I'd uncovered, texts, bank statements, even her signature on those shady loan documents, and feeling like I was in some bad dream I couldn't wake up from. My mind kept racing, trying to process how someone I trusted for so long could do something so calculated, so cold. I didn't confront her immediately. Instead, I needed time to think, to plan my next move. I knew if I just went off the handle, I'd lose control and I'd give her the upper hand. Besides, I wanted to catch her in a lie, or better yet, have everything laid out so I could confront her with facts. So I waited. I stayed quiet, kept my cool, and kept digging deeper into her financial mess. I needed to know everything: how much she took, where it went, who she was really hiding behind. It was a full-time job just trying to keep up with her lies and cover stories. Eventually, I decided I had enough to confront her. I set up a meeting at our house, told her I wanted to talk about us, about the marriage, about everything she's been hiding. She looked nervous but tried to brush it off. Acting like I was overreacting, she threw out some classic lines. "You're paranoid, you don't trust me, it's just sex with Jake, and you're making a big deal out of nothing." But I knew better. I'd seen her messages, her bank transfers, the property deeds she'd been secretly selling. She was lying, trying to keep her house of cards from collapsing. When I confronted her face to face, her bitchy attitude came out full force. She snapped, "You're just jealous because I still look good and I still have my freedom." She was trying to make me feel guilty, like I was the one who was wrong for catching her, but I wasn't about to let her spin this. I told her I knew everything about Jake, the money, the property sales. Her face twisted into a sneer. She denied everything at first, then started to get defensive, saying she was just trying to get by, that she only lied because she thought I'd leave her if she told the truth. She claimed she was doing this for us, to save the house, even though I could see she was just lying through her teeth. That moment was a turning point. I felt a rush of shock and anger I'd never experienced before. How could she sit there and try to justify what she'd done? I thought about all those years we'd spent building a life and how she'd just thrown it away for some affair and a bunch of shady loans. I was furious, but I also felt a deep sadness. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind, thinking we were happy, thinking I knew her. Turns out I knew nothing. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept replaying everything: her smirk, the secret texts, the money disappearing, the property deeds. I felt betrayed on every level. I kept asking myself if I should just walk away, call it quits, or fight for what was left of what we had. But honestly, I was too angry and too hurt to think straight. I knew I needed a plan. I couldn't let her get away with this, not without consequences. She thought she was clever, hiding her secrets behind a fake smile and smooth lies, but I was starting to realize she underestimated me. I wasn't the type to just roll over and accept losing everything. No, I was going to make her pay. I had to. The following days were a blur of planning and gathering every piece of evidence I could find. I knew if I was going to take her down, I had to be methodical. I went through our joint accounts, pulled every bank statement, every transfer, every withdrawal. The amount she'd stolen, $250, was just the tip of the iceberg. I found receipts for properties she'd sold off, signed documents with her handwriting, even emails where she was negotiating loans under fake names. She thought she was so clever, hiding everything behind her bitchy smile and fake innocence. My anger grew with each new discovery, but I also felt a strange clarity. I realized I couldn't stay married to her anymore, not after what I'd found out. I'd been a fool to think we had a future when she'd been secretly destroying everything we built. I decided I'd confront her again, but this time with everything laid out on the table, ready to expose her once and for all. It was a Saturday afternoon when I set the trap. I invited her to sit down and talk, pretending I wanted to work things out. To hear her side, she arrived looking smug, thinking she had the upper hand. I could see the typical bitchy smirk on her face, but I was calm. I had all the evidence in my phone printed out, ready to go. I played it cool, asked her about her recent trips, her late nights, and her secret phone calls. She tried to act innocent, but her eyes darted around nervously. Then I laid it all out. I pulled out the bank statements, the property deeds, the emails. I told her exactly how much she'd stolen, how long she'd been planning this, and how she'd been selling off our assets to cover her shady loans. Her face drained of color. She tried to deny everything, saying I was crazy, that I was twisting things, but I wasn't having it. I reminded her of the receipts, the signatures, the bank transfers. She snapped back, saying I was just trying to ruin her, that she did it all for us, and that she was just trying to make a better life for herself. That's when I saw the true bitchiness come out, her voice sharp, her eyes cold. I told her she was done, that I knew about Jake, about the money, about the property sales. I told her I was done being played like a fool, that I was filing for divorce and taking legal action to recover what she'd stolen. Her reaction was classic. She started crying, calling me heartless, accusing me of destroying her, and claiming I was just jealous of her success. But I wasn't listening anymore. I'd already made up my mind. This was over. She could lie, scream, or cry all she wanted, but I had the proof, and I was going to make sure she paid for her betrayal. That night I couldn't sleep. My mind kept racing, replaying everything she said, every lie, every sneer. I felt a mixture of relief and rage. Relief that I finally knew the truth, and rage that she'd done this to me after all these years. I knew I had to act fast. I contacted a lawyer the next morning, started the divorce proceedings, and filed for a freeze on all her assets. She thought she was so clever hiding her money, but I was closing in. I'd make sure she paid for what she'd done, no matter what it took. I also started planning how to confront her family, her friends, anyone who might have helped her hide this mess. I wasn't going to let her walk away unscathed, not after everything she'd done. The betrayal ran so deep I didn't even recognize the woman I'd married. Now, I was just waiting for the final blow, hoping that justice would come, and I could finally start to rebuild my life without her bitchy smirk and her lies. The days that followed were some of the most intense of my life. I felt like I was walking on a razor's edge, angry, betrayed, and determined to see this through. I stayed up late every night, poring over every document, every email, every piece of evidence I'd collected. The more I uncovered, the more I realized how deep her lies went. She'd been selling off our property, taking out loans under fake names, hiding money in accounts I didn't even know existed. It was almost overwhelming how much she'd managed to cover up, but I was relentless. I remember sitting at my kitchen table, staring at the pile of printed bank statements, trying to piece together her trail. It was like a puzzle I was desperate to solve. I found transfers to offshore accounts, payments to shady loan sharks, even receipts from jewelry stores where she'd bought herself expensive gifts with money I didn't know she had. The worst part was how she'd lied about everything, claiming she was just trying to fix things, or that she was worried about the future. But the truth was, she was just trying to cover her tracks to keep her secrets hidden. I finally decided I had enough evidence to confront her again. I called her and told her I wanted to meet at the house. She arrived, acting confident as if she still thought she could manipulate me. But I was ready. I had the file of documents in my hand and I wasn't going to hold back. I told her I knew about the property sales, the loans, the stolen money. I told her I knew she'd been lying all along and I was done playing her game. Her face twisted into a sneer and she spat back. "You're just jealous because I still look good and I still have my freedom." That was the moment I snapped. I told her she was a liar, a cheat, and a thief, that I was filing for divorce immediately and I was taking her to court for everything she'd stolen. Her eyes flashed with anger and panic. She yelled at me, calling me heartless, paranoid, and crazy, but I didn't care. I had the proof and I was going to make sure she paid for every penny she took from us. I told her she could deny everything, but the truth was out now and there was no going back. She stormed out that night, screaming and crying, calling me a monster, but I knew I had done the right thing. I wasn't going to let her get away with this. I contacted a lawyer the very next day and started the divorce process. I also filed a motion to freeze her assets, every account, every property, everything she'd hidden or sold. I wanted her to feel the weight of what she'd done. She thought she was so clever, sneaking around, lying, cheating, stealing. But I was about to turn the tables on her. While all of this was happening, I couldn't help but feel a strange mix of relief and sadness. Relief because I finally had the truth and I could start planning my next move. Sadness because I'd lost the woman I thought I knew. I kept asking myself how I'd missed all the signs, how I hadn't seen the cracks in our marriage sooner. But I also knew I couldn't dwell on that. What mattered now was stopping her, making her face the consequences of her actions, and reclaiming what was left of my life. I wasn't going to let her walk away with everything, her lies, her money, her reputation, not without a fight. The legal process moved quickly after I filed for divorce and froze her assets. I knew she was panicking. Her bitchy attitude had turned into outright desperation. Every day brought new surprises, though. She tried to spin even more lies, calling me crazy, accusing me of ruining her life, and insisting she was innocent. But I had enough evidence to drown her out. Her attempts at manipulation only made me more determined to see this through. One day, I caught her trying to access some of her hidden accounts via her phone. I had set up a monitoring app after I discovered so much just to keep tabs on her. When I saw her trying to transfer more money or hide assets, I confronted her right there in the living room. She looked furious, like she thought she could outsmart me even now. She snapped, "You're just jealous because I still look good and I still have my freedom," again trying to deflect. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I told her lies weren't going to save her, that I had all the proof I needed to take everything she'd stolen and more. She finally broke down and started screaming at me, calling me a terrible husband, a controlling freak, and a loser. She tried to spin the story that I'd been abusive, that I'd been controlling her all along, trying to make herself the victim. But I cut her off. I told her I was done listening to her bullshit. That everything she'd done, selling off our property, taking out shady loans, cheating, was going to come back to bite her hard. I made it clear I was going to fight for every penny, every piece of property, and I was going to make her pay for what she'd done. The turning point came when my lawyer told me she was trying to file a counterclaim, claiming I'd stolen money from her. That was ridiculous, of course, but it showed how desperate she'd become. I knew she was trying to muddy the waters, but I also knew I had the upper hand. I had all the documentation, all the evidence. I prepared my case, making sure every detail was airtight. Meanwhile, I started reaching out to her family, people she'd lied to, people who might have helped her cover her tracks. I wanted everyone to see her for what she truly was, a liar, a cheat, a manipulator. I didn't want her to get away with this. She thought she was so clever, hiding her money, her affair, her shady dealings, but I was about to expose her to the world. I was determined that once this was over, she'd have no choice but to face her actions and the consequences they brought. Throughout this entire ordeal, I felt a mixture of anger, betrayal, and hope. Hope that I could rebuild my life, that I could finally be free of her bitchy attitude and her lies. I realized I'd been foolish to trust her for so long, but I also learned a lot about myself. I learned that I was stronger than I thought, and that I wouldn't let a woman like her destroy everything I'd worked for. I was ready for the final battle, and I knew I'd come out of it better in the end, because I was done taking her shit. The final weeks were chaos, but also clarity. The court proceedings moved fast once I had all my evidence in order. She tried to fight back with more lies, claiming I had manipulated her, that I'd stolen money too, trying to turn the tables in her favor. But her stories didn't hold up. Every document, every email, every bank transfer was airtight. I had her cornered. The judge saw through her manipulations, and it was clear she'd been running a long, elaborate scam, selling off property, taking out loans, secretly funneling money into accounts she thought I didn't know about. When the judge finally ruled, it was as satisfying as I'd hoped. She was ordered to pay back every penny she'd stolen, and her assets were seized to cover the debt. The property she'd secretly sold was reclaimed, and the court ordered her to pay hefty fines for her fraudulent activities. I felt a profound sense of relief, like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. For the first time in months, I could breathe without feeling like I was drowning in her lies. The divorce was finalized soon after. She left the house, furious, bitter, still trying to spin her story to anyone who'd listen. But I didn't care anymore. I'd learned the hard way that trust isn't something you can take for granted, especially with someone who's willing to betray everything for money and a piece of ass. I moved out, started rebuilding my life from scratch, and cut all ties with her. It was painful, sure, but it was also freeing. Looking back, I realize how much I've grown. I trusted someone I shouldn't have, but I also learned to stand up for myself when it mattered most. I learned that betrayal isn't just about infidelity. It's about the lies, the deception, the theft of everything you hold dear. And I learned that revenge, when done right, isn't about hurting someone just to hurt. It's about justice, about making sure they face the consequences of their actions. Now I'm focusing on myself. I've started therapy, I'm reconnecting with friends and family, and I'm slowly rebuilding what I lost. What I want people to know is this: never ignore the signs, trust your instincts. And if someone betrays you, don't be afraid to fight back. Because at the end of the day, the truth always surfaces and justice has a way of catching up. And as for betrayal like this, yeah, it hurts, but it also teaches you who you really are. Stronger than you thought, wiser for sure, and ready to move forward no matter how much the past tried to drag you down.